Hello everyone, this is Shalom and this is Jeremy, and we are both JETs in Matsusaka. So I'm very lucky I can find him to make this video as well because I'm an ALT and he's a CIR, so we can give you perspectives from the two different jobs that you might get on the JET program. Say hi, Jeremy.
Hello everyone, I'm Jeremy and I work for the Matsusaka City Hall at the Tourism and Exchange Division.
Okay, so today's video will be split into three sections. The first one will be about just general prep work that you should do before your interview. And after that, we'll get into the questions, which from our experience, how we answered, as well as the questions that we compiled from the other Singaporean JETs for this video as well. And finally, we'll talk about what you should do on the day of the interview itself, like attire and such. So let's get into it. Okay, so the first one is prep work. Okay, so the first thing is that you should know yourself, which means that you should already have some basic information about yourself ready, like strengths and weaknesses and your work ethic. And if you don't have working experience yet, then how do you carry yourself professionally in your student life? Like, those are things you can think about. And you can also take the chance to reflect on your experiences and how that fits with the person they want in the JET program. And this, I think, is the most useful thing that will help you be strategic in your answers.
I think you should introduce yourself as close as possible to what you have written in the SOP, because it's your SOP that got you into the interview. Yeah, so I think the main purpose of the interview is for them to see you in person and whether you actually match what that you are in the SOP. Yeah.
So that's our first tip as up your senpais. Okay, so tip number 2 is be armed with useful anecdotes about your experiences. So like Jeremy said, if you have mentioned certain skills or experiences that you had in your SOP, then think about what are some concrete examples you can use to illustrate them. So example, I have a biomedical background, I have performing arts background, so that's very general, right? But what are specific incidents I can use to show them, like, through these experiences I gain skills like flexibility and adaptability? That's what they really look out for, because you are moving to an overseas country and they want to know that you are up to the task. So when you choose examples, be strategic about them and take the chance to reflect and think about how you have learned from these experiences as well.
Based on this experience that you mentioned, how it relates to the job as a JET, how it can help you, and also during this journey, what would you like to take back after the few years, how you can contribute and also what you can learn from the program.
So the last tip that I have, which is before we get into the questions, is actually don't make notes on your smartphone. Print and annotate on your SOP, because what happened is, on the day of the interview, the moment you walk into the embassy, they will take away your smartphone. You have to trade it in for the visitor's pass. So you don't want to find yourself trying to calm down in the last few minutes, because you will be quite nervous, right? You want to calm down and you want to read through your notes and you don't have your notes. So it's good to print and annotate on the SOP itself and just link to what ideas you want here and there. That was very helpful for me. Now we will go into the questions. So now we will begin with the questions itself, which I'm sure you're very curious about. So we'll tell you the kind of questions we got and how we tackled them, or how we were advised to tackle them, if you want to. Do you want to come in? This is Minori-san. We love her cafe.
Matsusaka.
Yes. Please come to Matsusaka. Hi. Yay! We're filming in her cafe because we love it here. The questions will be ranked in order of difficulty and specificity. I tried to categorize them in such a way so that you will see how they generally group the questions. So the first one is why JET, why Japan, why you, which I'm sure you have already addressed to some extent in your SOP. So just be clear of your answer that you have already given and elaborate on that a little more. So this one is a simple question. I don't think it's too challenging because you have already thought about it once. So second one is I think a lot of us got this question, which is how can you contribute in the JET program other than through teaching? So how I interpret this is how can you be yourself while contributing to the local community? So think about what you can offer. Of course, this can be hobbies-based, skills-based, or even just an extension of your job. So if you're applying for the ALT position, other than teaching, what else can you do for your school? So for me, I am skilled in EdTech, education technology. So I told them that I know that Japan is trying to shift towards digital learning, as Singapore was. So this was something that I could definitely help with for schools that wanted to implement more digital and remote learning. With my performing arts experience, I could lead programs to help students learn English through music and other ways. So I think they like that answer lah. I don't know, but it got me through. So Jeremy, how would you answer this question?
I didn't receive any of such questions. For me, the first question that was asked to me was when you think of the word resilience, what comes to mind? Yeah. So I think this is a very open-ended question, but I think it's good if you can show how you can link the word resilience with how you can adapt to the new environment. It's important for us to be resilient so that we can overcome maybe the culture shock. The first few months is definitely going to be tough because there are a lot of paperwork. Like when you just move in, you have to know how to pay your rent. A lot of paperwork. Japan is a lot of paperwork. So, yeah. Way to make complicated things more complicated. Yeah.
What Jeremy said is under the umbrella of personal qualities. Sometimes they might ask that more of you if it wasn't very clear in your SOP, or if they want to know more about this side of you. Yeah. So the next category that I can think of is admin matters, which I think is quite important. It's simple to answer, but I think your answer will change the course of your fate. So it's basically points of concern about your life in Japan, and you need to be as honest as you can. Yeah. So what I mean is that they will ask you specifically about any physical or mental disabilities or illnesses that you have provided information for in your application form. Questions about your medication, tattoos, being Muslim, or any other points of concern that might affect your life in Japan. Don't try to promise more than you can, because they are looking out for your well-being, and there are many people who were not able to adapt to life in Japan because of how daunting a task it was. And if you already have mental illnesses like I do, I'm still on antidepressants, but they want to check that you are stable, or you are in a state of mind that you are okay to go and tackle this challenge of living in a new country. And we had other JETs on the program who also have physical disabilities. They were very honest about it, and they were also accepted. So it depends on whether it affects your work or not. So they are looking out for you, and just be honest for it. So we had 2 Muslim batchmates, and one of them is quite a devout Muslim. He found it difficult after getting here to find time to pray. It was a challenge for him. So it's not saying that being a Muslim will exclude you, because they got into the program, but how much are you okay with not having easy access to halal food and things like that, they might ask you about it as well.
If you're a Muslim, they will most likely send you to a place where there's a mosque, at least. It may not be nearby, but it's within the city area.
So just be honest and tell them what you think about it. Yeah. I had a question about if you were given a placement other than what you asked for, will you still be willing to go if they assign me to a rural area? So my answer was yes, even though my preference was urban cities, and I asked for Yokohama, Sendai, and like Kyoto. I asked for the big cities, and I got like kind of like a Naka place, but this is still amazing. So like choose your answer according to your own preferences and just be honest about it. If you really don't think you're cut out for countryside life, tell them so. But if you're game to try anything, just tell them yes, I will take it. Yeah, because they want to avoid a situation where they give you a placement and then you reject it, and then they have to go and look for other people, and then there's a delay and all of that, so it's difficult for them as well.
So based on my observation, I think most people don't get what they have written for their
95% don't get what you ask.
So who knows, like the placement you get might actually be better than whatever you have.
Which is the story of us. Yeah. Matsusaka is better than we could have ever asked for.
Yeah. And before coming over here, I don't even know where Matsusaka is or where Mie Prefecture is located at.
We will advise you to try, even though there are a lot of unknowns. Okay, so the next category I can think of is situational or hypothetical questions about teaching or your life in Japan. So one of our interviewers, I think he's an English teacher, so he gave actually specific English-based questions to many of us. So my question was, if you were asked to go into a classroom and deliver a question about countable and uncountable verbs in 15 minutes, what would you do? And I was like, whoa, this is the most challenging question for me in the interview, because I have teaching experience, but I don't have English teaching experience. And it's been a long time since primary school that I actually thought about what is countable and uncountable. So I told him very honestly that right now, I can't tell you how I would do it, because it's been a while. I'm quite removed from that kind of lesson. But I will, in that 15 minutes, go online and look for resources that could help me print out and plan an activity for the children that can fit into whatever time frame I'm given. And in the time from now until we leave, I'm of course going to do more research on how to teach English to second language learners. Yeah. So I gave the promise of I will try to prepare myself for such a situation.
Yeah. So even though I applied as a CIR, I also received like like ALT questions, probably because I checked the box where I want them to consider me as an ALT if I do not make it as a CIR. I was asked how do I teach past perfect tense. I was kind of prepared to answer this question because I took the TEFL course, teaching English as a foreign language course, to kind of increase my chances of getting into JET, even if I can't get in as a CIR. So during the course, it was actually pretty interesting. I got to learn about logic behind the English language that we were not taught, because we are native speakers, right? I don't remember what was my answer anymore. Mainly, I think it's important to maybe play games with the students to keep them interested, elicit the meaning from them instead of telling them directly what certain word means or grammar means.
And as a teacher now in Japan for like 4 months, I would say Jeremy is right. Like, even though they cannot understand you most of the time, what they see from me is that I come into class and I bring a positive energy. They are engaged, they are having fun, because my Japanese teacher will help to translate the instructions occasionally, and they try. That's what I'm looking for, being able to try and just speak English a little bit. That's already a big step for them. So other than that, I think the last one, which Jeremy didn't get, was questions specific to your SOP. So some questions I got was like, or you're already a teacher, so we won't ask you about classroom management. We'll ask you instead, what was the most important thing you learned during your teaching experience? How was that like for you, especially during COVID? Wow, like that's a very loaded question. I have a lot to say. So that one took me like more than 5 minutes of talking. Yeah, so and another friend of ours he lived overseas for like 1 year or 2 years. So they asked him like, what were some cultural differences you noticed between Singapore and this particular country, and how did you navigate that? Wow, also very difficult, right? But that's a good chance to show how you are adaptable and you are okay with culture shocks. If you have something in your SOP that is like, open-ended that they can ask you about, prepare for it. This one I can't give you too much advice because it is very dependent on what you have written, but this is the part where you can shine.
I think different people have different strategies. So for me, I didn't really prepare much for the interview because I want to keep my thinking as fluid as possible and just to adapt.
So now we'll move on to the Japanese portion. The test. So what I noticed during the interview is that there's a Japanese guy, I believe he's from Clare or the embassy. He has a list of Japanese questions where if you answer satisfactorily, he will tick. And if you cannot answer or your answer doesn't match the question, he will put a cross. So guess what? For me, I learned Japanese for like 1 year. But like way before the interview, like 4 years before. I'm sorry to the embassy if this is spoilers for your interview, but like the first question I got was, what is your name? The second question was, where do you live? And then I responded, I live in Singapore. Then the third question suddenly leveled up, They asked me, do you like to travel by plane or by boat? You know what's funny? Like during the interview, I forgot what the word for boat was, so I only heard hikoki. Then I was like, hikoki desu. And then they asked me why, and I died. No more answer. I keep asking him to repeat, and I still don't understand it. So I kind of like KO'd by the third question, but I still made it through. So, like I mentioned before, I think Japanese ability is kind of the last thing they are looking for, unless you are Jeremy. Unless you want to be a CIR, then this is a crucial part of your job. Yeah. So Jeremy will bring you more through the Japanese questions that he got, which were more challenging.
So for the CIR's Japanese portion, I didn't receive any of such questions. They instantly gave me a passage to read, and I was super nervous, so I could read maybe 90% of the passage, maybe like 1 or 2 kanji. I know the meaning, but I don't know how to pronounce it. After I've read the passage, the Japanese lady asked me about a very specific line in the passage. I couldn't answer that at all. I couldn't answer at all, and I remember very specifically that there's this grammar I just forgot the meaning of, and there was just 1 minute of awkward silence. So after that question, I smoked my way through, and the next question was, in Japanese, should company only be chasing profit and not care about employees' welfare? Can't remember like exactly word for word what I answered. I think companies shouldn't simply chase profit, because from a long-term perspective, employees' welfare is also important if you want to sustain the company in the long run. So you can never prepare for such questions.
Correct.
Yeah.
But just to give you an idea of what the level of Japanese questions are for CIR versus ALT. ALT one was super basic. I think I KO at the third question, but they were up to 6 or 7 for the ALT portion. So some people were actually very, very good in Japanese, but they chose to be ALTs. And sometimes it does mean that you might get sent to an area where there are not so many English speakers, because you can survive with your Japanese, versus somebody who is like me and jialat cannot cannot speak that much Japanese. I'm still learning lah. Yeah. So Matsusaka was a bit of in between. My colleagues can speak good English, but in my day-to-day life, I kind of have to depend a lot on sign language and actually learning Japanese. So it's a good balance for me.
Even for CIRs, because we are all not native speaker, and a lot of us, when we are learning Japanese, we mainly learn the grammar and the written part of it and reading part of it. We don't really speak much Japanese, so it's like natural for you not to be able to speak very para Japanese.
That kind of wraps up our question portion of the interview. So in essence, just be confident. Like, the bar for Singaporean JETs is quite a lot higher than American JETs, because there are 2,000 Americans coming in every year versus like a puny batch of 16 for ours. But I would say that the people who were accepted into the JET program in our batch, like, I really admire each one of them. They are really all brilliant people who are hardworking in their own way. So if you're good, they will be able to see it. So have confidence in that. Now we'll talk about like final tips for the day itself, what to prepare. So I would say that the most important thing, this is a job interview. It is not just an exchange program interview or a casual thing. So you should be in work attire. That is up to interpretation. So for me, my senior told me that they are quite particular about it. So wear a suit, wear a blazer. But Jeremy, what do you wear?
So I was contemplating whether to wear a blazer or suit jacket, but I was taking into account of Singapore's context, and I decided not to wear a suit jacket at all. But I wore an office, like a professional attire with a tie. That was good enough.
Yeah, I mean, he got through.
I got through. Well, it's better to overdress, right, than underdress.
Leading on from being professional, and this is a work interview, obviously, like, this is very important to Japanese people, don't be late. So your interview, they will tell you to come early. So I actually scheduled to reach 35 minutes earlier so that I can kind of breathe a bit, have a drink of water, and like have time to look through my notes one last time before going in. But that's not how things turned out, because I was so early. I was earlier than the previous candidate before me, which was effectively he was late lah, because each interview was supposed to take half an hour. So I think he only reached like within the last 5 minutes before his interview, he wasn't there yet. So I got there first, and they actually ushered me in. They said the interviewers reached an agreement that I should go in first. So I barely sat down for 2 minutes before I was pushed in. So that didn't work out the way I wanted to. Yeah. So, but it's better to be early than to be late, because I can't imagine that the guy after me made a good impression. And when I came out, he was wearing khaki pants and like a Uniqlo cotton shirt, but this is a job interview. So, like, that will go a long way for them to understand how serious you are about getting into this program. Also, as I mentioned just now, if you do have the luxury of sitting down and preparing, your phone will be taken away from you. So if you need to look through your notes again, make sure it's on paper. And on the day itself, I believe you need to bring some supporting documents like your photo and some kind of interview voucher with your photo on it. So don't forget that. If not, the embassy entrance will not even let you in. And the last tip we have is to, if you can afford it, take a Grab, because the nearest bus stop from the embassy is quite far, and in Singapore's weather, by the time you walk in, whether in a suit or not, you are going to be sweating very badly, and you don't want that just before your interview, because you will feel very flustered and like, oh my god, you're sweating while the interviewers are talking to you, and you will feel paiseh also. So if you can, just take a Grab in and like give yourself the mind space to cool down and give it your best shot.
Look as confident as you can, even though it's definitely very nerve-wracking. Based on both of our experience, the interviewers are pretty strict looking, like they look very, very serious. I thought he would ask me some question, But in the end, he asked me 0 questions. He was just sitting there with his pen and paper and looking at me like this.
It can be quite scary when you go.
So well, try not to be intimidated. For the Japanese part, there's not much you can do to prepare. So just stay calm and good luck.
If you get into the program, come to Matsusaka. We love it here. It's our new home. Everyone here is super awesome and amazing. Yeah, and all the best of luck to you guys. We hope we will see you as our juniors next year. Okay, bye bye. Hello, this is Shalom and that's Jeremy.
What's up?
Yeah, anyway, what we're wearing this today, there's no particular reason. But there's a marathon going on in Matsusaka and we have Kaneko-san who is the kimono shop owner and she dressed us up in this. And Midori-san, we are filming at her cafe, she's so cute.